The vibrant green leaves of the Bunya Pine. Make another attempt at life outside the cage. Let's hope they survive. Whatever it was which has always eaten them off every other time, they have dared to grow beyond the protection of the steel. In the 26 years the Bunya Pine has been growing behind bars, so to speak. No point trying to plant a forest of bunyas unless you know whether it's possible for them to grow in the stringy bark, yellow box, wattle, melaleuca regrowth forest. And yeah, it turns out it is possible they will grow there. I don't know whether I'm ever going to see that thing produce a bunya pine cone full of bunya nuts in my lifetime. But at least it's there. It may perhaps grow and self-sow. I don't know. I notice that it's growing better and faster now than it has for the first 20 years. So maybe bunya pines here 1,000, 1,100 metres up above sea level appreciate global warming. That one's growing faster now that it's warmer than it used to before catastrophic warming began. But that bunya tree sapling is one of only 2 wild native food plants that I have successfully introduced onto the endangered species sanctuary. It grows almost totally wild, although it does have that cage around it to stop whatever preys on it from killing it, and I think that's probably a deer cage. Bambi does operate in these parts. Anyway, the other wild native food plant which I have successfully introduced here, it wasn't growing here before I purchased the title deeds, is this Wombat-Berry Vine, which sometimes gets broken off and sometimes it gets eaten, but it is still alive with runners and leaves and fresh bright green leaves to show this season's growth as distinguished from previous seasons of growth. And the Wombat-Berry Vine, it's pretty tricky to transplant because it lives in a commensal relationship with a fungus in the soil. So first you have to find your Wombat-Berry Vine, and then you have to go away and come back with a plastic bag and something to dig with, because you've got to not only dig up the Wombat-Berry Vine bulb, you've got to dig up sufficient surrounding soil as to not upset the roots, and bring back enough soil that you can dig a hole and plant the bulb in the soil and transplant the fungus as well as the roots. Otherwise, your Wombat-Berry Vine is going to die rather than live for 26 years like this one has. And yeah, that does make a little yellow berry that you can eat. Although, to be honest, it's the starch in the root ball, which is where the real sustenance, if you were absolutely starving, is located. So, there you go. Now you know. 2 different wild native food species introduced onto the endangered species sanctuary. While Bunya Pine's not actually technically endangered, although it is, well, it was being commercially harvested. I don't think it was being commercially harvested as a crop and taken to market, but it was being commercially harvested as a timber. And 2019, 2020 bushfires may have changed that, but it wasn't endangered when I moved it. Wombat-Berry vines, very few and far between these days. Sheep eat them, cattle eat them. The reason I transplanted this one 26 years ago, it was on a cow farm with no protection at all. And as risky as the transplant operation was, I thought it might appreciate coming to live on an endangered species sanctuary. And if the fact that it's increased in size and it hasn't died is any kind of a answer or response to data for the question, it does seem to be happier here than where it used to be. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.